one more copy. You got one? Okay. There's a very famous machlokes Rishonim. It's called the machlokes of the Ri and the Chachmei Prevansya. So let's build the background and then say how it's relevant. The Gemara in Brachas Daf Chavava Beis, very famous Gemara, top of the Amud, Tanar Rabbanan, Tov lo yispal mincha b'erev Shabbos. Someone made a mistake and he forgot to daven mincha on Friday. So mispal below Shabbos shtayim. He has a chiyuv Tashlumin. He davens 2 ma'ariv standard, 2 ma'arivs. Next halacha. Tov lo yispal mincha b'Shabbos. He forgot to daven mincha on Shabbos. Okay. So mispal b'motzei Shabbos shtayim. He could daven motzei Shabbos shtayim. Now both of these cases is a chiddush, because the chiddush of both of these cases is with the tefilah that you forgot to daven, and you're making up the next tefilah. The tefilah that you're substituting for the tefilah that you forgot is not identical tefilah. But the halacha of Tashlumin is that whenever you forgot a tefilah and you have to make it up on the next tefilah, you forgot mincha, you make it up ma'ariv time. So it's simple. If you do weekday, you do 2 weekday ma'arivs. That's very simple. But the chiddush of this Gemara is that if I forgot a mincha, Erev Shabbos, which is a tefilas Yud Ches, I'm going to daven Leil Shabbos, a tefilah of 7 brachas. And the tzura of all Tashlumin, we all know this, is that the first tefilah you daven is the tefilah of the chayiv, the obligation, and the second one you daven is the tefilas Tashlumin. And the Gemara says so far that that's the next Gemara. The Gemara says when you forgot to daven mincha on Shabbos, and now you're davening ma'ariv Leil Shabbos,
and you don't suggest tefilah?
Ma'ariv Motzei Shabbos. So what's the halacha? When do you say Havdalah? You have to say Havdalah in the first Shemoneh Esrei, because the first Shemoneh Esrei is the chayiv, and you don't say Havdalah in the second Shemoneh Esrei, because that's the Tashlumin. So the first Shemoneh Esrei is Atachen Antonu, and the second one doesn't have Atachen Antonu. Says the Gemara, okay, Ma'avdal B'Rishayna, four lines in from the top, Ma'avdal B'Rishayna, Ve'ena Ma'avdal B'Shniyah. V'mhivdil B'Shniyah, but let's say you switched around the order, and you didn't say Havdalah in the first one, and you said Havdalah in the second one. The second one was your correct Shemoneh Esrei. Your second one became into the tefilas chayiv. Shni also that worked, but Rishayna le'oslay. The first Shemoneh Esrei was nothing, didn't work, and now you're gonna have to daven a third Shemoneh Esrei, and your third Shemoneh Esrei is going to be the Tashlumin, because the second one became the chayiv, and the first one was nothing. Of course, a Tashlumin has to be anchored to a chayiv, and your chayiv was the second one. Rashi's mevarat more barichas, but that's the way it goes. Says Taisus. Taisus has a shayla, and the Rosh has it a little bit different. Taisus has a shayla like this. Taisus says, I'm 3 lines into the Taisus. Kas Rabbeinu Yehuda. Im tov li hisker Rish Chodesh b'mincha. If someone forgot and he didn't say Rish Chodesh in mincha, and ma'ariv already, it's not anymore Rish Chodesh. Says Taisus, le yispal oid balayla. Don't go and make a tashlumin at nighttime. He says, the lami yispal oid. What are you going to gain by making a tashlumin? You already daven tefilas mincha. Mibayim levad Rish Chodesh shlei hiska. Shemoneh Esrei you daven. You just didn't say Rish Chodesh. So he says, Im kain ma marviach klum, ein marviach klum. Tais is a very simple idea. If you daven mincha and you forgot to say Yal V'Yaveh, now it's not anymore Rish Chodesh. So tonight, when you're davening ma'ariv, you're not saying Yal V'Yaveh. So why should you daven Tashlumin? You're going to say another Shemoneh Esrei for mincha, and you're anyways not saying Yal V'Yaveh, you didn't gain anything. That means, Tais is saying that I'm obligated to go over Shemoneh Esrei if it was still Rish Chodesh. If I realized by mincha time that I didn't say Yal V'Yaveh, I would be obligated to go over Shemoneh Esrei and daven again. I'd say Yal V'Yaveh. But now, it's not going to help me to daven again, because I'm not able to provide a Shemoneh Esrei that has Yal V'Yaveh.
But you're doing one that's good at that time.
I'm doing one
that's good at that time. Meaning now it's not Rish Chodesh anymore. So now, of course, I wouldn't say Rish Chodesh, but I'm davening a good Shemoneh Esrei for now.
Okay. We'll clarify what you're saying.
Is there a din of just Tashlumin for the tefilah because you missed the tefilah, or the tefilah of Shabbos has to be mushlam, that it has to be b'dafka tefilah of Shabbos, or just tefilah stam?
You see clearly that you don't have to have just.
So it's just a tefilah stam.
a Shemon Esrei is Mechayev a Shemon Esrei, even though you're not providing the same Shemon Esrei. Big Chiddush. That you see clearly from the Gemara.
So there's no such thing as you have to be mashlim a Shabbos.
It's not possible.
And there's no such thing as a Rosh Chodesh either.
Right.
So that's basically what he's saying. That there's no such thing as a
This is-
tashlumin for Rosh Chodesh.
I gave you.
So you already davened your yotzi at tefillah, and that's
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So then there's no tashlumin because you already
That's
yotzi at
Shittas
tefillah.
Taisvus.
You didn't say Rosh Chodesh. You didn't say Rosh Chodesh. So okay.
Give me a few minutes. We'll get to exactly what everyone's thinking.
Go ahead.
The Rosh has another case. The Rosh has a case that someone forgot to daven on. The Rosh has a case that he forgot to daven. He davened mincha on Shabbos at tefilah schar. That's what he davened on mincha on Shabbos at tefilah schar. And he realizes Motzei Shabbos that the davening that he davened on mincha was schar. So now, if one would daven tefilah schar on Shabbos and insert the haskara of Shabbos,
That's fine.
you'd be yaitz.
Yeah.
But if you don't insert the haskara of Shabbos, you're not yaitz. Now the guy realized that he didn't do that. So now, should he daven 2 Shemona Esreis on Motzei Shabbos of Chol? Says the Rosh, same idea like Tosfos.
So the tefillah-
What do you gain? How many ways are Motzei Shabbos not going to be masking my tefilas Chol Shabbos? So what do I gain? Don't do it. That's the way the Rosh, before the highlights, was talking. That was the nusach the Rosh was talking. Then the Rosh brings in the Chachmei Parvansia, famous shita. The Chachmei Parvansia, I have it highlighted. The Chachmei Parvansia Omer, Kivan Shala Yotzi Yidei Chayvasai, since you weren't Yotzi Yechayiv, Bezu HaTfilah, when you do not say Yav Yavai, or you say a Shabbos davening that you didn't have the Haskara of Shabbos, so Kivan Shala Yotzi Yidei Chayvasai Bezu HaTfilah, Havi Leikilu Lo Yispalo, it's equivalent to you didn't daven. It's equivalent of skipping a tefillah. V'tzarech l'spal l'shtayim l'erev, and you have to daven 2 at night. Afal pisha ena masker shorish chaydish, even though at night you're not being masker shorish chaydish shel Shabbos, you're not being masker rish chaydish shel Shabbos. Still, you didn't daven. When they say you have to say rish chaydish, when they say you have to be masker Shabbos, and you didn't do it, you didn't daven. So you got to make it over. Now the Rosh says v'adova muchra, and the way in the Torah they explain that the Rosh is mesupik. If the halacha like Taisus Shito, the halacha is like the Rachach Mipravansi, and therefore the Rosh says from Rabbeinu Yonah Lekach Hayomer Rabbeinu Yonah Zal Shanochin Lotzis Min Asafik. The best thing you should do to be Yotz Ol Hashit is she Yispal Eisel Erev B'Teres Nadav. You should daven 2 Shemona Esreis B'Teres Nadav, as the same way you're allowed to bring a carbon Nadav, so you'll bring an extra Shemona Esreis Nadav. Usually when you bring a carbon and davi, you're mechuyev to add, to be mechadish b'davi. You don't have to, because the kivan shemispal oisel derech hasafik, since you're doing it to be yaitz the safik, and lechachidish called the mizek pish. That's always with the rule in the Rishonim, that when you're doing a Shemona Esrei, just to get you out of a safik, even though you didn't have any creativity in your Shemona Esrei, normally if you was superbly doing just the Shemona Esrei, just you love to Hashem and you want to say another Shemona Esrei, you have to have some type of chiddush in your Shemona Esrei. But the chiddush of getting out of a suffix is enough of a chiddush, and you don't need a mechadish b'davar. Okay? So this is the machlekes between the Ri and the Chachmei Parvansi. We're going to crystallize the machlekes in 2 minutes. Let's just see. The Torah brings this down in Hilchos Rish Chodesh. He says, Kasav Rabbeinu Yehuda, Shem Shakach v'yispal Yav b'mincha, she'en lo v'yispal b'motzei Rish Chodesh Arba Shtayim. Don't. Kivin she'en lo laska shor Rish Chodesh. She'en lo laska lami yispal Arba Shtayim. Kivin shekvar yispal Yudches b'mincha. V'lei davi lo damrino tov v'lei yispal shemincha b'Shabbos. It's not equivalent to when someone forgot a Shemona Esrei on Shabbos, that the Gemara says mispal b'motzei Shabbos Shtayim. Shalcho. The Shani Yosem da'af b'Shabbos say real yispal Yudches. He says over there, really on Shabbos, Yudches bracha is a regular weekday Shemona Esrei would work. The reason why we don't do it is only because it's too lengthy for Shabbos. Terech Shabbos silkach kishalei spal mincha yotze Yudches shem spal mitzvah Shabbos. The Rosh is explaining how could a weekday Shemona Esrei substitute for a Shabbos obligation. He says because really Shabbos, a weekday obligation is really, yes, it's a proper Shemona Esrei for Shabbos because really we were supposed to daven regular weekday Shemona Esrei on Shabbos. I don't have full Havon in the Torah. The Rosh says the same svar because that's not totally
Shabbos is not supposed to
correct.
ask
With
which
Elching
one.
Masker Shabbos, it's not a good Shemon Esrei. So I'm not focused on that part. It's something that I do have to explain, but that's not really my focus. But he says that a regular Shabbos Shemon Esrei that you missed, it makes sense to make it up with a weekday Shemon Esrei because it's the proper Shemon Esrei. He doesn't discuss the other way. When you miss a weekday Shemon Esrei, how could a Shabbos Shemon Esrei make it up? He doesn't discuss that. That's something. Both of these points need to be clarified. But the point is, the Chachmi Pravansi Kasav Kivan Shla Yotzi Yidei Chayvasai B'Masha Espal Havakilu LeIspalo V'Tzarech LeIspalo Shtayim Be'erev Afapi Sheina Maska Shorish Chaydesh. He says it's like you didn't daven, and you have to daven two over. V'Adayni Avi Arosh Zechrena LeBracha Kasav Adava Mukra. You look in the bottom, he's unsure. L'kachayem or the Rabbeinu Yenesh, you should be yitzim mitam safik and do tefillas nadav. If you look in the Torah, I didn't photocopy the Torah in Siman Kuf Ches. This here, the Torah brings it down regarding forgetting Yal V'Yavai. The Torah in Siman Kuf Ches brings it down regarding forgetting to be daven at tefillas chol on Shabbos, and you were masker Shabbos. He brings down the same machlekes. So there's two scenarios where this machlekes is. When someone daven Rish Chodesh Mincha, and if you got Yal V'Yavai, what you do Ma'ariv, and when someone davened Mincha, and he davened weekday Shemon Esrei, and he wasn't Masker Shabbos, what should do Ma'ariv? That's the two cases that the Machlekes, the Ri and the Chachmi Pravansi. The Chaburah in Siman Kuf Yud Ches, Sif Yud Aleph brings the Mechaber brings down Tov Mincha Shel Shabbos, identical to the Torah in this Siman. Tov Mincha Shel Shabbos, Mispal Shemon Esrei, V'Lisker Shel Shabbos, Mispal Mitzvah Shabbos Shtayim, Ve'Nam Avlu B'Shniyah. The Yispal is P'teres Nedava, V'Tzarech, V'Etzarech, V'Kadosh B'Dava. The next page, V'Adin Lehiski Al V'Yavai, V'Mincha Shal Yishchaydish. So the Beis Yosef, the Mechaber goes straight like the Hafra of the Torah, the Yechaydish for the Chachmei Pravansi, like Rabbeinu Yehuda said, and do it P'teres Nedava. Mishabura gives you the background. Then the Mishabura in Ois, in Sivkat Lamed Daled, he says, 1 second, you have a little problem with this. Let's say someone did this on Erev Rish Chodesh, that Ma'ariv is Shabbos. So if you forget to say Yal V'Yavai on Erev, not on Rish Chodesh, that's leading into a Shabbos, you can't daven Ma'ariv too, because on Shabbos we do not do Nedavis. So this Eitzah wouldn't be Eitzah in that case. On Rish Chodesh, which is Erev Shabbos, that you forgot to say Yal V'Yavai, could you go and daven two Shemon Esreis on the Ma'ariv? No, because we don't now let her bring in a davar on Shabbos. That's what he says over here. He says 2 lines from the bottom in Sivkat Lamed Gimel, B'Shabbos v'Yantav ein mispal tefilah safik the eich yisna they mevin a davar b'Shabbos kidul el b'simin kuf zayin. Okay, so that's the background. Okay, that's all the background. Now, the Steipler in Kilas Yaakov, he just like says what everyone says, the Yeshiva Sheteri. It's very glock, simple Yeshiva Sheteri. The simple avon in this machlokes between the Ri and the Chachmei Pravansi is very simple. Everyone agrees that if you forget to say Haskara the Imechuyev, Yal V'Yavai, Melech HaKadosh, Talamata, Masha V'Ruach, Shabbos, Chiyuv of Haskara Shabbos, everyone agrees that if you don't do that, you got to daven again. The question is, that I'm obligated to daven again, is Pshabbos because I didn't daven? When I'm missing the Haskara, the way they would say it out is I was Meshanim in Matbei, I changed the coin, the minted coin of the way the structure of the tefilah is supposed to be, I changed it, and I made up my own tefilah. This is not tefilah. Tefilah is supposed to look like this type of tefilah, and this is not a tefilah. And I just didn't daven, so I have to daven again. This wasn't a davening. That's clearly the way the Chachmei Pravansi learned. They say you skip a Yal V'Yavai, Nishka davened. You didn't daven. Got to daven again. The Ri learns, no, I davened. There's just a halacha that I have to provide a Shemon Esrei that has Yal V'Yavai. And if I didn't have provide that Shemon Esrei, even though I had a mitzvah of tefilah and I daven, I got to still provide that. And daven again to provide that. You had a Shemon Esrei, you had a davening, but you still have a chiyuv to provide a Shemon Esrei that has Yal V'Yavai in it. And if you're still able to provide that, daven again. If I'm Leil Maitzi Rish Chodesh and I'm in my Ma'ariv, says the Ri, davening I daven. Providing a Shemon Esrei that has Yal V'Yavai in, I anyways can't provide that. So if I can't provide that, so what's the point of making a Tashlumin? So there's a very strong machlokes, and he had to look at when someone misses a haskara, when he's supposed to have a certain ma'ira, the yalviyav and everything. Is it didn't daven? That's why Chachma prevents you look at it. Well, you daven, but you just also have to provide such a type of davening, and you have to do it. So do it again. Later, if I can't anyways do it, so what do I gain? That's the simple understanding between the two shittas. Now, the Stipler, if you look on the second page in the Stipler,
But if you have to do it again, then what did you really do?
What do you mean, what did I
You
really
provided what you were missing.
No,
but if you have to do it again, then you're going to say you did something, but you still have to do it over because
Right.
you didn't do it the right way?
Right.
Yeah, because I have to provide such a Shemon Esrei. There's my chiyuv to provide
Right,
such.
but what did you really do then? If you have to do it over again...
You're going to call this not a tefilah? You're going to call this was no tefilah? I wasn't yaitz my mincha?
Maybe you were not answering it.
The Ri says you were yaitz mincha. You just have the obligation to provide a mincha that had yal v'yaveh. So good, so you're going to make a second try and you provide a mincha that has yal v'yaveh, but you were yaitz mincha.
You say there's two obligations. The obligation is mincha every day.
Right.
Plus, Rosh Chodesh or Shabbos is the obligation to do
That would be the nafkamina, so
Yeah.
that if you are not able to do it again, do you get schar for the original mincha, right?
Yeah, you could say it.
Yeah, one hold you don't have to repeat it. You can't copy it.
Nobody's worried about Yisra Shem Hashem Lashav and saying Hashem's name over again so many times. Nobody's worried about that.
No one's worried.
Nobody's worried about that.
Okay, now listen to the next
Interesting.
shaila. This is very geschmack shaila. The second column, on page Nun Aleph in the Stipler, he brings down a Pri Chodesh. V'hina Pri Chodesh. The Pri Chodesh brings down the Marash Gar Mizan. That he says, the Marash Gar Mizan, it's the last paragraph on the page, says that someone was mispal, he had to do a Tashlumin. He forgot a davening. And he's now davening, Ma'ariv twice, let's say. He's davening Ma'ariv twice. And he's davening Mincha twice, because he had to make up for Shachris. And the first Shmones is the Shem Mincha. And the second one is to make up for Shachris that he missed. Well, listen to what happened over here. And this is coming up. We're starting to say Saint Talamot. Okay? Saint Talamot, you miss Saint Talamot, you're not Yitzhak. Okay? It is Mincha that he davened, he forgot to say the Saint Talamot. His Mincha is the first Shmones that he's supposed to daven, he was obligated to daven Mincha, he forgot to say the Saint Talamot. And he already davened the Tashlumin. So he did two tefillahs. He davened Mincha and the Tashlumin. The Tashlumin, he did it all right. He said the same Talmud, he did it all right. But in the Mincha, the first of the two Shemon Esreis, he forgot to say the same Talmud. His question is that you have to do another two Shemon Esreis. You'll do 4 Shemon Esreis. I have this joke with my kids that sometimes on Sukkot you could daven like 3-4 Shemon Esreis in one shot. You forget Yaviyava, and then you forgot the Musaf, whatever. You could just keep on going sometimes.
Why would it be another 2?
Because the way Tashlumin works, Tashlumin's only a continuation of an obligatory Shemon Esrei. If my obligatory Shemon Esrei was not Chal,
right,
so my Tashlumin is not good either, because my Tashlumin wasn't anchored to obligatory Shemon Esrei. My Tashlumin I had in mind as Tashlumin. I didn't have in mind as Mincha. That you saw clear from the sugya that the Gemaras we quoted.
It makes a difference though what he had in mind.
Yeah. This was that he provided a Tashlumin.
Right, but it turns out that the first one wasn't good, so the second one
More
should
than
be
that,
good.
the Tashlum. Oh, the second one, yeah.
The second one should count as his mincha now.
Yeah, let's read this inside. He's Marash Gar Mizan, calls him Kisvayad, Shemisha Spal Rishon L'Shem Mincha Kedinai, Vashniya L'Shem Tashlumin, V'tor B'Shal Mincha, he made a mistake in Shal Mincha, Boif and Shetzarach Lach, so that he has to go over, K'goy Shaloi Shal Mata Kiyatzabay, or he forgot, let's say it would be Alviyavi, whatever, something else, let Mash Ruach Meir Geshem, Mash Mashigam Yidei Tashlumin Yal Yotza, V'atfilah Ashni L'Shem Shespal Lacha, V'tzarach Lach, so L'Spal Shtayim, 2 more. The Amrit Shniya also loy nimtza shespal tashlumin tchila. If the second one works, so then you're having a tashlumin before you chayv, and that can't work. Adkan. Because of alzah ha-Pri Chodesh, the Pri Chodesh disagrees with it. Ve'ein nira. He doesn't agree with this. the shani yocheh shekvar hiktim atfila ikris kaidim tefilah satashlumin al shetabo. The Pri Chadash doesn't agree with this. He says, what do you mean? I davened my Yikr Shemona Esrei. I just made a mistake. Pri Chadash doesn't explain himself. So let's just say this outside. We agree that a Tashlumin has to be anchored to a Tefilas Chayiv. And if my Tefilas Chayiv didn't work, then my Tashlumin's also down. And I got to start again. That's a given. That's not anyone, no one's disagreeing with that. The question is do I say that my Tefilas Chayiv is down? So the Marash Garmizon says that my Tefilas Chayiv is missing Talamata. That's something that obligates you to go over again. You didn't have a Tefilas Chayiv. Says the Stipel, you know what they're arguing about? Our Machlaikas. This Machlaikas between the Rishayim. The Marash Garmizon learned like the Chachmei Provansia, that says that when you miss a Ma'ero, that when you miss something that's supposed to be plugged in Shemona Esrei, it's not a Shemona Esrei. Not a Shemona Esrei, you didn't have the anchor, you can't have a Tashlumin. Start again. The Pri Chadash says, his language is, Venenir, the Shani Yocheh Shekvar Hiktim Atfila, Hikris, Kaidim Tfilas Atashlumin, El Shetaba. The Pri Chadash says, I have a mincha, I'll have to do the mincha again, because I have to also provide a mincha that has talamata, but that's cool to have a mincha. So I don't need to daven a whole nother tushman esrei, because I had mincha with the tashlumin, and I'll just have to daven mincha again, because I didn't have talamata. It seems to be a very beautiful way how to explain this machlokes, the Pri Chadash and the Marash Garmizon. It sounds like a great way that if I have my first Shemona Esrei, my mincha, and then I have the tashlumin, but the tashlumin was the first Shemona Esrei had this problem. Marash Garmizon says, listen, no Shemona Esrei, missing that the haskara, no Shemona Esrei. It's two more. That seems to be understandable, makes a lot of sense. The Stipler has a little deichik that's very creative. He wants a time that could be that Pri Chadash is also masking to the concept of the Chachmei Provansia, that it's not called the Shemona Esrei without, if you didn't miss the Ma'ir, it's not called the Shemona Esrei. And a little bit, I think, what Yehuda was trying to say, that maybe for Tashlumin, it doesn't need to be anchored mamish to Tefilas Chayiv. As long as I was being Isaac in Tefilah already, like the idea of Tashlumin is you can't start just with Tashlumin. But if you're already being Isaac in Tefilah, even though I wasn't Yaitza with this Tefilah that I was being Isaac, but I was being Isaac in Tefilah, then the Tashlumin could go. The big Chiddush, if you look on the end of this paragraph that we were seeing in the brackets, Ach Efsher, the Pri Chadash Savad Afilu Ila Yotza Klal, that even if you Yotza Klal Yedei Tfilasei Chayavis, Mikol Makom Hamiyah Sh'asik B'Tfilah L'Spal Tfilasei HaMuchayavis. I was being Isaac V'chol Kai Gavne Kvar Mikvi Sh'Tashlumin Loiba B'Pisaim. The Tashlumin is not coming suddenly. You can't start off with the Tashlumin. El Achrei Shekvar Isaac B'Tfilah. At least it came after you Kvar Isaac B'Tfilah. It's a svara, but it's hard to say that this is a svara mamash la'alach.
There's no difference in missing Talamata or missing.
Oh, he's on the money. That's what.
Talamata is part of Shemona Esrei.
Oh, okay, very good. So before we get to his nekuda, that's Reb Chaim al Shas nekuda. 1 second. Before we get to there, it's kedai to see the Stipler's last paragraph. So the Stipler now just concludes, unbelievable suffix. He says it should come out, we should stop being able to wonder. Someone forgot Yalav Yav Rish Chedesh, like December 4th. We're middle of Hanukkah, we're going to be early into Talamata, and it's going to come out Rish Chedesh on Hanukkah. V'omar Talamata, he had a Shemona Esrei that he said Talamata Kedinai. And okay, 1 second. Let's say he said Talamata and he forgot to say Yalav Yavi, so he has to go over again. And on the second Shemona Esrei that he went over again, he remembered to say Yalav Yavi, but he forgot to say Talamata. What's the story? Does he have to daven a third time? A guy daven Shemona Esrei, said Yalav Yavi, forgot to say Yalav Yavi, said Talamata. Davens again, says what he missed the first time, but he forgets something new, right? First Shemona Esrei, forgot Yalav Yavi. Second Shemona Esrei said Yalav Yavi, but forgot Talamata. Does he have to daven a third Shemona Esrei now? This machlokes between the Ri and the Chachmei Provansia. If you look at every time you're missing something, like it's not a Shemona Esrei, so you can be spinning your wheels and you still weren't Yaitza. But if you say, no, I was Yaitza, I just required a new Shemona Esrei that has this format. So I could cut and paste between two of them. I had a Shemona Esrei. I'm mixing and matching. Because I need a Shemona Esrei as Yal V'Yavei, and I need a Shemona Esrei as Talamata. So between the two, I had a Shemona Esrei. That's the typeless Shaila. And in another sefer I saw he has a similar Shaila in Ritzayin and Yal V'Yavei benching, if it's Shabbos Rish Chodesh. And I said one benching with Ritzayin, and forgot Yal V'Yavei, and the second, what? Shabbos and Yom Tov together.
You do any combination you want.
Right.
Any combination.
Any combination. So the Stipler leaves it besuffic. He says the Kurd should be telling him the Shaila. If you hold like the Chacham Pravansi, and it leaves you a suffix. But this is what Rav Moshe was saying. If you look on the next page, the first Reb Chaim al Shas quotes our Taisus, and Reb Chaim wants to know. You learned the Taisus, and Taisus had a Shaila. The Taisus' Shaila was, and the Rosh had it a little bit different. Taisus' Shaila was that you forgot to say Rish Chodesh and Mincha. And the Rosh's Shaila is Yidavin, Shabbos, Mincha, weekday, and you forgot to say Shabbos. Says Reb Chaim, why didn't they have the same idea that he forgot to daven Mincha, Erev Shabbos, and he forgot to say Talamata? These Rishayim should have the same Achlaikis. We're going to come up next week. You daven Mincha, Erev Shabbos, and you forgot to say Talamot. Now I'm standing Ma'ariv Lel Shabbos. Do I daven two Shemona Esrei Ma'ariv Lel Shabbos? Let's make the same machlekes. According to the Ri, what do I gain? I'm anyways not saying Talamot in Ma'ariv Lel Shabbos because I don't daven on Shabbos davening. I don't say Baruch Aleinu. So what do I gain? Don't daven twice. According to the Chachmei Provansia, daven twice because your first Shemona Esrei didn't work
Did you say in
at all.
Shabbos you don't do Tashlumin?
What?
Didn't you say in Shabbos you don't do Tashlumin?
That's if you hold you're doing it with Teres Nadav. We're talking what the Rishonim really disagree about. The Rabbeinu Yoina held you're doing it to Kumitam Savik. We're talking it Kedadina. So Reb Chaim wants to know, why did the Rishonim argue in this case? Why didn't they argue about this case? It's a simple case. So he wants to say, I see from there that the Haskara of Talamata is L'Kuli Alma, a Haskara that if you don't, it's like part of the bracha, it's not an added bracha, this becomes the Tzuras HaBracha, it's not like Yal V'Yaveh that, you insert it sometimes, this becomes the Tzuras HaBracha during the Matar season, this becomes the Tzuras HaBracha, and everyone will agree that you're Mishanim Adbeya of the Shemona Esrei, and you're not Yaitz Shemona Esrei. The Riz also agrees to the Chachmei Pravansi, as you say in this case. I don't know how far Reb Chaim goes. Does he say in Hamelach HaKadosh this also? Does he say, if you didn't say Mashburach HaMered Geshen? I'm not sure. He says it in the same Talamota, that's what he says. Ad Kan Reb Chaim. So, according to this Reb Chaim, the Stiplis Zushtel in the Pri Chodesh, that the Pri Chodesh was talking about, when a guy had two Shemona Esreis, and his first Shemona Esrei he forgot to say Talamota, and his second Shemona Esrei he was his Tashlumin, that the Pri Chodesh brought down from the Marash Garmizan, that since his first Shemona Esrei is down, so the next Shemona Esrei should also be down. L'chera, according to Reb Chaim, the Ri would also agree to that, because Talamot is a different type of Askara. The Ri, everyone would agree that if you forgot to say Talamot, you have no Shemona Esrei. Talamot is a different type of Askara. That's what they want to say up here, Reb Chaim. I'm concluding with this. The Har Tzvi, Tzvi Pesach Frank wants to argue Reb Chaim, and he says, I don't understand that Talamot is so important. It's part of the Tzuras HaBracha. Don't you know that you could say Talamot and Baruch Aleinu? I think we could say Talamot. I was in the middle of looking it up. Are you allowed to say Talamot even before Baruch Aleinu? Could you? You for sure could put. You for sure could put Talamot in Shema Aleinu, right? So he says, how could you say that Talamot is part and parcel of the Tzuras HaBracha? It's not. It's even less than Yal V'Yaveh. The Bakashis of Yudches Brachas needs a Haskara of Bakashis Mater. It's not part of this bracha. It's less part of this bracha than Yal V'Yaveh. Yal V'Yaveh, when you remember that you didn't say Yal V'Yaveh, you got to go back to Ritzei. There's no other place where you can say Yal V'Yaveh. You can't put it in Maidim, you can't put it when you want. But Talamata, you can put it in elsewhere. There's no din that you have to put Talamata in Dafka, in Baruch Aleinu. Shema Aleinu, for sure Talamata is appropriate.
On Yom Tov we say Yal V'Yaveh in the Brit Sayem. We don't even say the Ritzei.
On Yom Tov we say it in part of the Tzuras HaTfilah.
The middle bracha, we don't say it in the Ritzei.
So what is he saying?
So it's not mamish muchach that it's it's a it happens, yeah.
Okay, good, but you still hear his time that Talamot is the chur, not so part of Baruch Aleinu.
But who's, Reb Chaim is saying that it's part of Baruch Aleinu, that it's
Yeah.
part of Shemini Esrei?
I mean, so, and
You have to
Yalvi.
have Shemini
He has to make this more part of something than Yalvi Yavi. Everyone in Halacha, both of them.
You have daven Shemini Esrei. In Shemini Esrei, you have to mention Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah.
And if you don't mention Rosh Chodesh, you still daven Shemini Esrei.
So
But to say
Talamot.
Talmud is part of Shemini Esrei. Without that, you messed up Shemini Esrei.
Let's see his wording. Let's see.
So the halacha is by Havinenu that you can only say Havinenu in the summer because
Right.
because you have to say Saint Talmud.
Right.
So I mean,
Everyone agrees. You can't say Yal Havinenu when it's Rosh Chodesh probably either, no?
no, because Havinenu is just the middle bracha.
Oh, because they're okay, very good. I don't know if that's right. Ulam, 3 lines in, Ulam betalamot ein lahakshis came, mishum betalamot hu misay da tfilu kshlei oma habi mashana matbeya shetavacham, kilu lo yispal klal. Al v'yav v'yavi rak chiv haskari, lo yavi kilo yispal rak,
Sometimes it's part of the
shechiv
bracha.
yispal
It's
shnai.
part of Shemini Esrei.
Okay, I hear, but that's what you're saying. How could you prove to me that it's more part of the Shemini Esrei than Yal V'Yaveh? Because how do you see that it's more part of?
Because you have to say it for 4 months. I mean, the fact that you...
That's the idea. I don't know. Is that the idea? I mean, because that's the Zman, and this Zman is Rosh Chodesh is once a month. I don't know.
Somebody,
But this,
a year ago, 2 years ago, somebody asked me the Shalom, if we got the same, they were super, the same tower, on Friday, the winter.
Friday minute.
So I told them to, when the Chazan should have in mind to be both of them when it says,
The Chazar Sashatz.
yeah.
That's the best day.
Yeah, for the main Sheva.
Oh, the main Sheva.
Yeah, have in mind to be both of them for.
The main Sheva. I hear. The main Sheva. So you pass it not like a Chaim. Okay, thank you for listening.
No, because according to the year that you use,
With main Sheva, right. I hear. Okay.
Shkayach.